Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the discussion for Shrek. Are you ready for Shrek?
Yep.
You're ready for Shrek, you sure? Is this your swamp?
See, I wasn't ready, but then I saw her face.
Oh no. The Smash Mouth references. Or that's not Smash Mouth, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
They really exploded when this movie came out.
Absolutely.
And everyone was just suddenly aware of who Smash Mouth was.
They had more than one song on there, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they had at least two, because there's I'm a Believer and All-Star.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which are both really well put in the movie.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really like about this movie is the musical score is great, basically throughout. The way it actually leaves on a musical note, because I'm a Believer plays at the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does it play more than once?
It might play elsewhere in the movie, but they definitely, at the end, like Donkey's singing and there's someone on the piano playing it and they ride off into the sunset. And I just thought that it was kind of cool because the whole thing about this movie is that it's about believing in love more than it is about like believing that the love exists outside you.
Interesting. I really don't like the musical use in the third Shrek, I think it was. There's a part where there's like one of the, princesses is able to like call, I think it's Snow White. She can control the animals. And so they time her yell to Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song, where he's like,
no.
And it's like timed to her. Like, so like she's doing Robert Plant's voice. And it's like, it's just so.
Come from the lands of dwarves and coal.
It's so. Where the musical cues are. Anyway, it's really awkward. And I it's like almost like, it's like too on the nose. Where it's like you listen to a song where some guy's like falling down the stairs and putting on my shoes, and then you time that right up to somebody falling down the stairs and putting on their shoes. Like it's way too on the nose to be clever or interesting.
Yeah.
However, the Immigrant Song is used very well twice in Thor Ragnarok.
Which, yes, and it is very appropriate because it sounds very Viking-esque.
So that's that.
Come from the land of ice and snow.
It's not how I was looking at it.
Where the hot springs blow.
It's just I shook my head both times, but I had a big smile on my face.
I
was like, "This is dumb."
That's what matters.
But I love it.
Enjoyed it. I really like how clever they are when it shows DreamWorks Studios and the S at the end of DreamWorks and the S in SKG are both like Shrek S's. They're all green and they have the ears.
No, that's funny.
And back then they were sort of just starting to do that thing where they would like change those little intro sequences. They'd be different, like the Pixar eye.
They do that now all the time?
Well, there was a period where they did it a lot.
Oh,
You remember when the Pixar eye got like longer and longer, and then there was that one that came out on the internet that was definitely not made by Pixar, where it like crushes the eye and then all the other letters freak out and they arrest the lamp and then they put the lamp on trial for killing the eye, and all the other eyes are there, and like he's got lowercase eyes are his kids and they're crying. You haven't seen that?
I think I have the lowercase.
Yeah. I think that was like the culmination of that. But back in the day they had one where some sort of like, I think it was a robot for one of them, like plugged in this little toy. I think it was for Toy Story. It was one of those little things that you turn it over and it makes a mooing noise. And then you turn it back over and he plugged it into the THX thing normally goes woo.
Did it make a cow noise?
Yeah, they used the cow noise and then it like blended into the THX
That's
thing.
Sick.
Yeah. So for this era they were like just starting to do it.
That's clever.
And then they open with that whole book scene where he's reading on the toilet, and it's like a normal fairy tale entrance. So you see,
and then
he rips the page off the book. But when he comes out of the outhouse, the page is stuck to his foot, and I'm wondering if that's them implying that fairy tales are like toilet paper, like they're garbage.
I think, well, a theme, sort of hidden theme, of Shrek is that it's sort of like an anti fairy tale story, and it's also aimed at like it's an anti-Disney film because the guy used to work for Disney, right?
Yeah, it's heavily anti-Disney because it's sort of a screw you to Disney.
Yeah.
And I just like how many references there are. And then there's that scene where Shrek scares off all the farmers who are trying to collect the reward on his head. And it kind of reminds me actually of Thrall from the Lord of the Clans book that we read, where he's attacked by all those farmers, but he lets them go out of mercy. Shrek could have killed all of them. There's so many points in the movie where Shrek could have just mobbed people and just taken what he wanted.
He kind of does, though, in that gladiator match. Like
they also attack him.
He fucks dudes
Yeah,
up.
they attack him. That's defending the person, defending oneself. And then there's that scene where he picks up the poster and he goes, "Fairy tale creatures wanted," and he drops the poster on the ground. And I realized those are really good, like, easy animation frames, because the poster falls on the ground and then they just like focus in on it. But that's like, 3 to 4 seconds where they don't have to animate a character's face.
They're trying to get, like, you think they're trying to get animation time out of that?
3 frames, man.
I mean,
because they show it twice. It's in his hand, stationary, and then it's on the ground, stationary.
Maybe yes and no. It could be more time to look at it, but I think animators are always looking for moments like that. So, like, I think that's just part of, like, a giant basket of
it's one of many.
Like,
definitely.
I'm sure there's a shit ton of shots where, like, Donkey and Shrek are walking far enough away you can't even see their faces, and so it's just Mike Myers. And
there's one scene where Shrek rips this, like, flower crown off Donkey's head and just, like, drops it in the water, but it's so weird the way he does it. He grabs it and then he just, like, chucks it, but as if his arm didn't have any force behind it. Like, he just kind of opens his hand and it just goes flying like it was thrown.
Oh, I'm just. What's the music in that gladiator scene?
Oh,
it's like "Don't Want to Be" or "Don't." What is it? How does it go? It's like a really bad woman.
Isn't it Bad Reputation?
Yes.
Don't give a damn about my bad reputation.
Yes.
That's such a great
Perfect.
Scene. I've seen that movie 3 times over the last couple days because I watched it with a girlfriend and then I watched it again on my own to take notes on it.
Is that where the idea came from?
Yeah, because we watch it together all the time. It's the best Shrek movie. It just hands down. Very much the same way the first Pirates movie is heads and tails better than the rest. The first Shrek movie is just easily the best one. It has all the best elements and it doesn't get bogged down. So many movies get really bogged down in trying to, like, replicate something they did the first time.
Yes. It's because they never planned on doing the first Pirates the way that they did it. Johnny Depp was not supposed to be a hugely important character, and he ended up making the whole thing funny and interesting. And the story is kind of half about Will and half about Jack, and their relationship to the Black Pearl. And every movie after that struggles to find a reason for why the two of them should be together. Whereas in the first film, it makes sense. They're
forced together
on the same path, right? One's after the woman, one's after the boat, and the boat has the woman. Boom, there you go. It's good cop, bad cop, good pirate, bad cop, pirate.
Simple.
You know, like suave pirate, guy who steps off of
this one
boat as it sinks pirate.
This one was definitely more thought out. There was more planning involved in all the great aspects of this movie. But
Shrek?
Yeah.
Well, it's because it was the first of its like style.
And also because in animation you have to be really deliberate.
That doesn't explain though why the rest of them are bad. Like why other animated films are bad, which usually comes out of poor planning or.
Yeah, exactly. Because so much has to be done at table reads and at drawing boards. Because if something gets too far past the drawing board, all of a sudden you can't redo. You have to redirect. You have to try and make the fuck up not as bad as it could be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Things get cut and added last minute.
Things that just don't feel like they belong.
And it messes with the flow
of the overall work, like where they put things in.
That's pretty funny that the flow of the podcast
just got interrupted there. Yeah. Magical words. So when they're all being rounded up at that camp in the very beginning where the woman tries to sell Donkey and she goes, I have a real talking donkey, and everyone's getting money for their fairy tale creatures. I found that scene very, very disturbing.
It is.
Because I can't tell if they're work slaves or if they're, like, if it's more of a genocide type thing. Because Lord Farquaad later refers to them as fairy tale trash and says that they're poisoning his perfect world. So that sounds very genocide-esque. That sounds very cleansing, sort of, that doesn't sound like a like someone who wants to put them to work. However, they're paying them based off what they bring. They give more coins for someone who brings in a witch than someone who brings in a talking puppet. So the fact that they're buying them implies to me that they're actually going to put them to work doing something, like some sort of sideshow.
Yeah, and a lot of them are still alive.
Which I think is a huge...
film.
That's supposed to be a shot at Disney, that they're rounding up all these fairy tales to make money off of them.
Right, they're kind of grinding them all in together.
Yeah,
It's
exactly,
like one big,
exactly. They're beating a dead horse in a way.
There are so many animated films that get advertised to me, and I'm just like, that doesn't seem like it adds anything to the table.
Yeah, all it is a piece of animation.
Yeah, and like, I haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon, but I was blown away by the animation one day when I saw it in like a pawn shop.
It's pretty sweet. The first one's really good.
Yeah.
Well, it's got Jay Baruchel as the main character, and Gerard Butler plays his father. And yeah, the first one was it's the same as anything, man. They always say the first is the best in any series, and for the most part, that is true.
It is almost always true.
Almost always true. There are definitely notable exceptions. Batman, the Nolan versus Batman's being a very good example.
That so I think that the first two Nolan Batman films are kind of the best in their own right. They tell very different styles of stories. Batman Begins. Batman. I'm definitely not saying.
Do not defend
No,
this.
no, Dark...
Your point is indefensible. We shall flank you. Continue.
The Dark Knight is definitely better than Batman Begins.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Point settled.
They,
Moving on.
There's basically no part of The Dark Knight that I would change. Like, right from the very first shot, it is interesting. It pulls you in immediately with this weird, ambiguous shot, closing in on a window that breaks open, and then there's this heist that's
it's
already
long
been planned.
Because it has to be.
And it's so fucking cool.
It's
anyway.
not long because it wants to be.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Batman,
there's no fat. There's no fat in that movie.
There's definitely fat in that movie. But Batman Begins focuses more on Batman, whereas The Dark Knight focuses a lot more on like
the antagonist.
The antagonist and his impact on the world as Batman. And then the third film focuses entirely on Tom Hardy's face.
Yeah, pretty much. On
bald head.
On very avoidable, completely impossible situations. So the other thing I noticed about all the people being rounded up at the camp is how excited Pinocchio's father looks to be selling him.
Ooh.
Yeah, because he's smiling as he counts the coins in his hand while they take away his wooden puppet. And I just thought, is that supposed to be like the person who owns the rights to Pinocchio? Are they making a shot at the people who, you know, whore out their own like legacy and namesake?
Oh, yeah, whoring out your project, right?
Kind of seems like what they're trying to say there. And then obviously there's the scene where Donkey starts flying and tries to run away from them. But I love when he runs into Shrek, and the look on his face when he sees Shrek is terror, like immediately complete terror. But then as soon as he realizes he's not in danger, that terror just evaporates completely. He's not afraid of Shrek at any point in the entire movie, even though Shrek is a giant monster.
Which sort of separates him from other people and allows them to bond.
It would be like being friends with Shaquille O'Neal. He's a really nice guy. He's not gonna hurt you. But he's so big that if he just wasn't paying attention and you got whacked with a backhand,
man,
it's essentially a baseball bat. So,
or if you tripped,
tripped and fell.
Yeah, he could actually really hurt you.
Yeah, and just compacted you into a little cube accidentally.
Right? That's not what I meant, but okay.
But yeah, it's just a big creature. I also like that they're not forced to be together, Donkey and Shrek. You know how you were talking about Will and Jack being forced on the same path because they both wanted the same thing and needed the other's help. Shrek doesn't need Donkey, and Donkey doesn't really need Shrek. The only reason they're together is because Donkey is so persistent. It's the only reason they're friends at all.
I guess Shrek's kind of forced to work with Donkey because Donkey wants to be part of it, right?
Yeah, but he could tell him to go away at any point. It might not work, but he could like run away from him. Like he could have done other things. He chose to take Donkey with him. Because once Donkey led him to Farquaad, he didn't need him anymore. Farquaad told him where to go. That's the only reason he takes Donkey with him, is because he's the one who knows how to find the castle.
Is there a note in there about layers?
Yes, there's. So that I like the onion scene. Everyone likes the onion scene. I think what he's trying to say with ogres having layers is that there's an outer layer which may not seem appealing, but you can't assume that all of the inner layers are equally as unappealing. And that's the reason Shrek doesn't commit great acts of violence, even though that's what everyone assumes that his race is all about. I think that's a pretty obvious analogy. I really like that scene too because they're walking through a sunflower field on their way to a windmill. And then that windmill ends up being where like the main portions of the story take place later on when they're coming back with Fiona.
The plot, yeah.
They get to that windmill, Shrek picks a sunflower and tries to give it to Fiona, and then that's where the whole misunderstanding happens. So I like that foreshadowing that conversation is right there.
You know what? I think people really like the original Star Wars, and they don't like the newer ones. And I think it's a similar situation here. Star Wars and Shrek both have really simple plots. There's a lot of things that happened in between them, but the plot of Shrek is essentially like two different. He like walks to the castle, walks past the windmill to the thing, saves her, walks back to the windmill, goes back to the castle. That's the end of the film.
Yep.
It doesn't go very far. It doesn't have very many things to do, so they had all this time to develop characters in between. And Star Wars takes place on like 4 different places among 3 different films, and then the prequel Star Wars is like 5 different planets in one movie.
You guys want to catch an Uber to Tatooine?
Yeah, you can't jam that many fucking planets. Like effectively make anyway.
Unless your characters can travel instantaneously, like if you have some sort of teleporter. Unless you do that, you lose so much time to just traveling.
Even Killjoys took a whole season to explore the 4 planets in their system. Even a television show, a 10-hour television show, even understood that you can't just visit every fucking planet all the time. You have to start on one planet and then explain that there's another planet that's all about this thing.
I also like when they go to the castle and then walk into the parking lot and it says you are parked in Lancelot. I find that so awesome. All these little hits to Disney, like at the wedding when they walk in and Shrek admits that he loves the princess, and then Farquaad starts laughing and he looks over at the guy who has the fucking audience cards that tell them what to do, and he like flips it around to laugh and they all start laughing at him. It's just so ridiculous at a wedding that they have the flashcards.
A really weird thing about not weird, but like a background thing about shows that are filmed with live audiences is that you can't just have the audience sitting around doing nothing and then have somebody make a joke and get the laugh you want. So they have comedians that sort of like corral people and entertain them between warm takes. Yeah. And it's like it's like quite a talent because there's no, I mean, you can prepare, I guess, in quotes for it, but in the end, like there's a huge amount of just free balling. Just trying things,
crowd work,
making fun of that guy, making fun of the boom mic guy.
Sounds really awkward. Well, also when you go into Duloc, you remember they pull that info booth and it starts singing to them?
Oh, yes.
My favorite part about the info booth is right at the end where Donkey just goes, "Wow, let's do that again." His character is just so idiotic. But during that info session, the first thing they say is, "Don't make waves, stay in line, and we'll get along fine." How creepy is that?
Well, that's also how like lineups are like a huge part of Disney World.
That's a good point.
Don't make waves.
Well, and that reminds me of my favorite scene in the entire movie, which is where he gets past the parking lot and there's that guy with the giant Farquaad head, and he just panics and starts sprinting down the serpentine like back and forth in the Z pattern until he gets to the gates and knocks himself clean out by trying to get his huge head through the tiny gate.
Well, Shrek just plows through.
Yeah, I just love how crazy the scene is, and then Shrek just walks up, looks inside the helmet, and then just kind of shrugs his shoulders. He's like, "Well, I guess we go in then." I just want to talk to you.
So Farquaad is supposed to be like a sort of like a I don't know what the word you want to call it. It's supposed to sound like fuckwad.
Yeah, it's just like a pseudonym.
And he has a resemblance to like a main guy at Disney from back at the time when the guy here. This is DreamWorks?
Yeah, DreamWorks Studios.
Yeah, so the DreamWorks guy used to work at Disney, and one of the guys that worked at Disney looks a lot like this character. So it was supposed to be his likeness. He's supposed to be called Fuckwad. And his castle is like a giant penis, isn't it?
Well,
it's just super tall.
It's super tall, and Shrek even comments on it. He says, "Oh, I wonder if he's compensating for something," and it just goes right over Donkey's head, and not because he's short, just because he's stupid.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, not really. Not really.
Your joke.
Yeah,
funny.
No, I know, not
very
really.
Funny.
I know, I don't agree. But I love the build-up to Farquaad being short, because he's walking, and he's putting on these gloves, and he's all menacing, and like, you see the guy put down the glass, the executioner, puts down the glass, and then fills it up with milk, and there's all this music, like a Mario dungeon, and then that's when, then he goes walking by the guards, and he's just this half-sized dude, walks up to the table, and it's at the top of his head. Felonious, and the whole table comes down.
This is what I'm talking about. You can't have a scene that detailed if you want the characters to do 100 different things. They kept the plot simple, which allowed them to do silly things like Shrek walking through the turnstile or whatever, and this guy being built up, and all these little scenes that you can do because the story isn't super fucking complicated.
Well, and that reminds me that, so you know when he goes in to interrogate Gingy, the gingerbread man?
Is that what his name is?
Yeah.
That's an awkward name.
A little bit, actually.
Gingy.
So, first of all, he had his prisoner dunked and de-limbed. He doesn't have legs when Farquaad comes in. He even crushes one of his legs into dust in front of him. He's an asshole.
He's more than an asshole. He's a torturer.
Menace. So he comes in, and he questions him about where the others are, I assume meaning the other fairy tale creatures, like the ones he hasn't caught yet. He says, "Tell me or I'll," and he goes to rip off his button. Not the gumdrop buttons! That whole scene, and where he's like, "I'll tell you. Do you know the Muffin Man?" That whole scene where John Lithgow's character is like 100% into it. The Muffin Man, yes. Who lives on Drury Lane? She's married to the Muffin Man. That whole scene is irrelevant because as soon as they bring the mirror in, he goes on to Princess Fiona. You never revisit that whole Muffin Man conversation. They put that in there just because they knew they could. And then,
I forgot John Lithgow is in this.
He's Farquaad, yeah.
He is so fucking good, man.
He's fantastic. He's so great as the character.
Oh, I love that guy.
Some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice I am willing to make.
That's a Russian Badger joke. And he's like, when you're playing Fuse and you're like firing grenades on the other side of walls onto places you can't see, and it's just like, some of you may die.
Oh my god. It also reminds, like, there's a lot of great lines in this. One of them is Shrek's walking into the actual area where all the knights are right before he battles them. And he looks at Donkey and he says, "You're going the right way for a smack bottom." And you know what that's from? It's straight out of Austin Powers.
I thought so.
He says that to Fook Me. She keeps saying it. He's like, no, what's your name? Fook Me. You're going the right way for a smacked bottom.
That's great.
I just love how they brought that in. It also makes sense because his voice is essentially Fat Bastard. Shrek's voice.
Well, Fat Bastard
is Scottish.
Yeah, but even before that, you haven't seen So I Married an Axe Murderer. You have to watch that. Like,
I have actually seen it.
You have?
Yeah.
We just talked about it, and you said you hadn't.
I've seen it a long time ago. All I really remember is at the start, he gets delivered a huge cup of coffee.
Yes.
And that his wife is an axe murderer, which I know is in the title, but...
Well, I mean, his newly married wife is an axe murderer.
Yeah.
But the Scottish character came from he played his father, and and the father has a younger son named Heed, I think is his name. Okay. And his head is constantly in the way of the television. He's just like, Heed! It's so good. Like, that's where the character came from. Like, Fat Bastard is a derivative of the father.
Yeah,
But he
'cause-
plays his father so well, it doesn't feel like when Eddie Murphy plays his family.
Yeah.
Like, I actually didn't even notice that it was Mike Myers for a while. I was like, fuck, that's good, man. That accent is so good, you forget who it is.
Yeah, it's always good when somebody blends in 100%.
Mm-hmm.
When,
Johnny Depp in Tusk. I didn't even know.
I don't want to watch
I don't think
Tusk.
you shouldn't want to watch
Yeah, I
it
shouldn't
either.
watch Tusk.
It's disturbing. It really is. That's the only reason why you shouldn't watch Tusk is because it's disturbing. It's a fantastic film.
Yeah, I watched too many disturbing things. I watched Black Mirror. That's enough.
This
That's
is way more
enough
disturbing than Black
I bet it
Mirror.
is. It's fucking Kevin Smith.
Because
He's so disturbing.
Black Mirror is like fucked up in its concepts, whereas this is fucked up
In general.
in the execution of what's happening. Because the actors are really good in that film. Like it's like
That's what I'm worried about.
creepy. Good.
That's definitely what I'm worried about.
Although it has a dog shit ending, actually. It's really unfortunate.
Okay, well now I'm worried about that too.
Kind of ruins the whole thing.
I'm not in. So you remember that scene where their first meeting? You might not remember actually. You didn't do your homework.
Sorry, dog shit is a little. I like Kevin Smith.
That's aggressive. Yes.
Yeah.
And Shrek says, "Look at me. What am I?" And Donkey goes, really tall?" And I like that because it's one of those scenes where Donkey has no prejudice in him whatsoever. At all. He doesn't judge anybody. He doesn't judge Fiona or Shrek.
I need to go back to this. You just gave me shit for not watching Shrek. You texted me today. We were supposed to do this tomorrow
yeah.
at fucking 5 p.m. It is the day before at 3 p.m.
So
all right?
today's the day we're going to watch it?
Yes, I was going to watch it tonight. So don't give me shit for... You fucking brought the deadline back, all right?
My teacher brings up the deadline and then blames me for not getting my homework done.
Dude, it's a long weekend. It's the August long weekend. I'm not supposed to be working right now.
This is the time. Oh, man. I like that Shrek also struggles with... As soon as he meets Donkey, he suddenly struggles to enjoy being alone. Because he now knows what he's missing. Like, when he sits down to dinner after he kicks Donkey out to sit outside, he sort of has this sadness. Because everyone needs a friend.
That's my concern.
'Cause I'm all alone.
I've spent so long on my own that I'm concerned about meeting someone that I enjoy being around way too much.
Yeah.
I love short bursts with all the people that I know. I'm just like concerned about meeting someone that I just want here all the time because I've learned to be on my own. I'm okay. I'm not only am I okay with it, like I like it. Like my whole life is designed around not having to make plans, which is why today when you were like, any chance we can do this today? I was like, sure, because there's nothing.
There's no other plans.
There's nothing ahead in my horizon. That's how I live my life. I'm
Good
just
point.
like I just do whatever I want whenever I want.
Yeah, the other thing is that let's say right now you spend 100% of your time on your own, and in the future you'll spend 50% of your time with the other person. It's not actually 50% of your time. It's more like 60, because there's like time starting to see them and stopping seeing them.
That's
that
also
like
50% of my free time.
Yeah, exactly.
You
And
spend
also,
like 30% of your time doing nothing.
you're putting mental engagement into that, which takes away from the mental engagement you can put into your personal time as well.
true.
So it really does shake things up, and that's why he is reluctant to give it up immediately. Also because Donkey is a very overwhelming person.
Yeah,
And I'm
so
sure
you
everyone
really
has
noticed that he's gone.
everyone has met someone like Donkey. You were even talking about it the other day, like those people who, when you go near them, they will talk to you.
Yeah.
Right? And then it just feels like they're a proximity alarm. Like, oh shit, I need to go into stealth mode before I go around this corner.
That's funny.
Because if Kathy catches me, there's no way I'm getting back to my desk.
Kathy.
Fucking Kathy. God damn it.
Fucking Chet. This fucking Chet.
So also the fairy tale creatures move into Shrek's swamp in about 15 seconds. Because there's a scene where he sits down to dinner and he looks kind of sad. And then Donkey's outside and looks kind of sad. And then maybe 4 seconds later, Shrek hears a noise, and that's the mice in his house. A dead broad gets put on his table. It's Snow White. And then there's a wolf in his bed. And when he goes outside, there's everyone there. They have tents set up. There's a fucking landing strip for witches. Like, they actually move in within a 30 to 45 second period.
Fairy tale.
Well, they are fairy tale. Yeah, exactly. And then Donkey goes, well, I didn't invite them. And I remember thinking, how could you invite somebody? They just descended on the swamp. There must have been an organized attack, you know? Okay, well, we won't let the ogre know. We'll just wait till he's eating dinner, and then we'll just shove him in there.
Have you seen Shrek source filmmaker stuff?
Oh no! Like that's where the Shrek is life, Shrek is love comes from.
Yeah.
Oh no!
There was one where it was just like, where the door, like the outhouse door kicks open, but Shrek isn't animated. He's just like a still pose character, and he just like slides across the floor with this like weird down tone. He's like, donkey.
Oh god. So disturbing. Source material is always so disturbing.
Source filmmaker.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's what I meant. Like anything.
Source material is where we get our content from.
Yes, but yes, the source, like a source mod, I guess. Is that what I'm talking about?
Source filmmaker.
Like, yeah, is that like?
Yeah,
it's essentially like Gary's
engine,
mod.
the source engine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very creepy. Very creepy. And especially when mixed with other things like other games or movies. That's when it gets really weird too.
There's a John Cena is life one, where instead of the dad coming in and Shrek saying like "Get out of my swamp," it's John Cena just says "You can't see me."
Oh my god. Oh yeah, I gotta love John Cena. I haven't seen him in a long time though.
Yeah, nobody has.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie, favorite speeches, is where Shrek gets outside, sees all the fairy tale creatures, and then he goes, "Attention fairy tale creatures, do not get comfortable. Your welcome has officially worn out. In fact, I'm gonna see this guy Farquaad right now get you off my land and back where you came from." And then everyone starts cheering, and he's trying to be angry.
That's what he wants.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's
They're all thinking that he's defending on their rights, and then he has to give. He just wants to basically yell at everybody at this point. And then when he goes to leave with Donkey, he grabs a torch, but there's a dwarf holding on to the torch, so he shakes him off into the river. He just this is mine and you're gone, right into the water, and then just takes off. Yeah, I like that speech. That speech sums up what the movie is about. The whole movie is about achieving the Disney dream without doing it the Disney way. That sums up what Shrek was supposed to be. There's so many clever references in this movie, I couldn't catch them all.
Yeah.
You know, the merry men, the piglets. I love the piglets. He huffed and he puffed and he signed an eviction notice. They're just so clever, man.
What a lot of this comedy kind of feels like is what you see from Seth MacFarlane, but there's like a good connection between, like it's a cohesive connection between the jokes
instead of being random,
instead of a bunch of flashbacks.
Yeah, and then they also bring in the mirror from Snow White, the mirror on the wall. And
the mirror is like a fucking host.
As a game show host.
Yeah.
So first of all, I don't know why he had to pick between the princesses. He theoretically could have just had all of them brought to the castle, and whichever one got there first, he could have just married.
Yeah.
I don't know why he had to pick 1, 2, and 3, but he should have picked Snow White. She was sitting in Shrek's swamp, not guarded by a dragon or anything.
That's
he could have just gone and got her.
Which one likes pina coladas and getting caught in the rain?
I believe that's Fiona.
Oh,
it is
okay.
actually Fiona, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, but don't let that cool you off. Oh, man. Yeah, the onion analogy scene, I like how immutably happy Donkey is in that scene. Cakes! Everybody loves cakes. You know, parfaits may be some of the most delicious food on the planet. My mouth's watering right now just thinking about them. Jeez. When he finds Fiona's castle, I was watching it yesterday, and I remember thinking, that is the most magical thing about this movie, is Fiona's castle. It's at the top of a mountain in a boiling lake of lava, but it's like its base is made of stone. So if it was sitting in lava, the stone would melt and it would just sink down into the lava. So I just remember thinking that, like, what is holding this castle up? And basically, it's just like dreams and wishes. It's the only thing keeping it floating there.
That's so funny. That's your angle on it.
Yeah, that's my takeaway from it. And when they go into the castle, you can tell at this point Shrek is still super anti-fairy tale, because Donkey says, all right, where is this fire-breathing pain in the neck? And he says, at the top of the tower, waiting for us to rescue her.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
That's good.
And when they do actually get Fiona out of there, it's that scene where she says, "Where are you going? The exit's this way." And Shrek says, "Well, I have to save my ass." It's like every kid's favorite scene when that movie first came out. But right before he does that, they walk past a cauldron that must be 7 or 8 feet tall. It's taller than Shrek is. And this huge cookbook that's got to be at least 10, 12 feet tall. And it's the dragon's cookbook. And it has, like, so on one side it says nightly meals, spelled with a K. And then, or does it nightly treats? And then on the other side it says choice cuts, and it has like a dismembered knight where it shows like where you should cut for all like the different pieces of meat. I thought it was so dark. I've never noticed that before, that the dragon seems to be the only one that actually eats on a regular basis. Everyone else just sets out on these journeys and they just don't even worry about food. Like when they rescue the princess from the castle, she says, "If Farquaad wants to rescue me, he'll find me right here." And then she sits down at the top of a barren mountain. How long are you going to last there? You're going to sit there for like 2 days while they go and get somebody else and come back?
Yeah, wow.
No one needs to eat or drink in this world. They just eat when they want to. They're like, "Oh, okay, well, we have food, so let's do it."
That's something that's kind of hard to even, like... It gets kind of boring when you make a show about...
Yeah, that someone actually has to survive.
Because, like, in Walking Dead, like, it's always like, oh my god, it's zombies. Like, watch out for them. And season 3, they begin with, like... They haven't eaten in forever, and there's like 8 of them, and one of them's pregnant. And
gotta start a farm.
This crazy moment, and then like a whole season is about finding sustainability, but it doesn't focus that hard on food because they knew that it wouldn't be that interesting.
It's a good point. It's because food is a repetitive constant, so you wouldn't want to have to. All right, and on the way to Fiona's, they'll have to find some food, and then on the way back, they'll have to find some food, and then maybe we'll also have them like hit a storm, and then the storm will make it harder to find food. Like, yeah, it's just too much. It's a fairy tale, right?
You could end up doing that like gross thing that Brad Pitt does in every single scene of Ocean's 11. He's always eating. He's eating in like every single scene.
Constantly, yeah.
Yeah, it's gross.
Well, that's why I used to call him a squirrel, because it always looks like he has food tucked away in his cheeks.
Forgot about that.
So when they do rescue Fiona, the first thing she says when she sees Shrek is she says, "This is all wrong." And then she goes on to say, "You're not supposed to be an ogre." And when you watch it for the first time, you think, oh, okay, she's just being a bitch because she expected a human, but it's not a human.
Right.
When really she's actually angry because she expected that the ogre side of her would go away, not that the human side of her would go away.
Right.
She assumed that because she's a human by day, her true love would be a human, not an ogre. So she's thinking like everything she's assumed.
She was projecting what she wanted onto her
shit onto other people.
Was she like? We say that like I don't know, it's some thing about how we look at ourselves and other people. So like really lazy people are very aware of the laziness of other people.
That's a good point.
Because they're focusing on that kind of thing because it's something they focus on personally. So she wants to be a human, so of course she believes that her savior will be a human as well. That's her wishful thinking.
Yeah, and I think that that's just what she's struggling with in that moment, so that's why it comes off as being so mean and so hateful, because she doesn't know what to do personally. When Shrek even says it later at the wedding when he finally sees her, he goes, "Well, that explains a lot." And it does. It makes the whole movie make sense, right? It really brings everything together, and it's the reason you have to be honest with people. All these movies, it's lack of honesty.
It is actually, especially like the whole like Ben Stiller era of comedy. Like everything was about fucking up and then not being honest about it. Like every moment, every cat he sets on fire happened because he couldn't just be like, "Hey, I did a bad thing."
Reminds me of that scene from Seinfeld. And there I was, standing with a marble rye on the end of a fishing line. Because George just tells one lie, which turns to another, which turns to another, and then after a while, he's standing there with a loaf of bread on the end of a fishing pole, trying to sneak it into his parents' house. Just all these ridiculous things. It's the same as the Jack Black syndrome, where Jack Black comes into a perfectly normal scenario, lies so much that it fucks everything up, and then continues to lie until he gets himself out of the hole. When if you've seen somebody dig a hole, it's really hard to dig up. But in movies, it seems to happen all the time.
There's a scene on Mr. Robot where he doesn't know if the person he's talking to is real, and he's in a taxi. So he tries to get the taxi driver to acknowledge that the person's there. But he does it in the most freak-out possible way, where he, like, bangs on the window, and he's like, "Is there someone here?" And the guy's like, "What?" And he's like, "Did you hear him?" And he's like, "Dude, calm down." And he's like, "Fucking tell me!" I'm like, dude, if you had just said, "Hey, excuse me, is there another person in the, like, how many people are in the back?" Like, just that. Instead, he just freaks the fuck out to the point where, like, the taxi driver was like, "Get out of my taxi!" And I'm like, you really need to, like, calm down.
Yeah, those are the worst moments when you know a character is going to behave in a really unfortunate way, and you know that it's part of the plot, but you just want it to not happen.
I think I had said it a long time ago, back when I used to tweet from my own personal Twitter, and I thought it was funny. But one of the things is that I called House of Cards interrupted conversations of the White House, or interrupted sentences of the White House, because that's basically what the whole show is. The amount of people who start sentences and then get interrupted by someone else is crazy.
It's
like,
off the chain.
You start to, like, feel every sentence is, like, almost gonna end. Like, you're, like, anxious for them to finish it so someone doesn't fucking interrupt them, because it's all of those, you know, those really, like, standard lines where it's like, "You can't do this. I already have," that kind of thing. Where it's like, just like people keep, where it's like, yeah,
too much of it.
It's way too much.
Yeah. Oh man, too much of anything really ruins it. But what's worse than the lying, I find, is the speaking in obvious generalities. So Shrek overhears her saying something, and it just happened. I understand when someone overhears the wrong portion of a conversation, because that's what we're always talking about on this channel, is how important context is and how easily you can strip the context away and make anything sound bad. So when someone hears 10 seconds of a conversation, it makes sense that it would sound bad. What doesn't make any sense is when he comes back in the morning and Shrek says, you know, like, "I called Lord Farquaad," and she says, "Well, you know, I have something to tell you." And he says, "I heard enough last night." And she says, "You heard that?" And he said, "Yes, I heard everything." And then she says, "I thought you'd be okay with that."
Right.
And he says, "Well, I'm not." Fucking somebody just say, "Wait, what do you mean by all of it?" Or
see,
the
reason why that works so well is because most people
it's painful.
Most people don't know how to be specific. I've had that many times where somebody tells me, you know, like you know, this part about your personality may upset you, and I'm like, when do I do that? And they're like, well, you know, like, you do it all the time. And I'm like, but do you, like, can you remember a specific time, like even just today? And they're like, what? And I was like, okay, so it happens so frequently, and yet you don't have a single point in there that you can tell me an example.
I guess what also bugs me is that, you know, she says, "I thought you'd be okay with that," and he said, "Well, I'm not." Why didn't she say, "But you're an ogre too"? And then he would have said,
"Right.
What do you mean?"
Right.
And then she would have said, "Well, did you hear everything?" And then when Farquaad showed up, they would have been like, "Oh shit, maybe we should actually run." And then the movie would have gone in a different direction. But you know what?
Right, but conflict is required for an interesting story. So. And
that is the problem. I just really don't like drummed up conflict. When the conflict doesn't make sense to me, the movie doesn't make sense to me. And when characters are obviously that inept and then in the next scene are very open to emotional change, it feels very Disney. And that's not what we're going with.
Have you seen War on Everyone?
Is it a movie?
Yeah.
No.
Alex Skarsgård. I've told you about this. Actually, I'm pretty sure I just told you about this in the Duloc.
Wait, is it Alex Skarsgård and...
something Pena.
Yeah.
Michael Pena?
I believe Michael Pena. He's actually in a new movie that I started watching and I don't know if I can finish, called Extinction. Extinction. Because he has these dreams where the world is about to end and people are starting to think that he's crazy. So he goes to this place to try and get treated for it, and while he's there's this other guy who's like, they're real. Like, I'm having the same visions you are. Like, do you see this, this, and this? And it's all the same things. And at this point, I was still really interested. And then the fucking night where it happens, like where the aliens come down, they're in a hotel and their kids are separated from them. So now there's like no power. There's aliens coming in and they have to find their kids. And I was like, this is too fucking stressful. I'm going to bed. Like, it is 9 o'clock. I'm not doing this.
Dude, have you seen what was that terrible movie?
So no.
Skyline?
Yeah, the one where the blue lights.
Yeah. So they made a sequel.
Yeah.
It's like beyond
Skyline.
Yeah. And it began really good. I was thinking, because like once I saw the bright blue light and all that shit, I was like, oh, this is very much like that other movie, because I couldn't remember what that was called. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if they made like a good version of that? And I didn't realize that they were actually directly. It is a sequel of the film, and then I was like, "Oh no, this is shit, this is connected." As soon as like the first silly, stupid thing that happened, I was just gone. I immediately just like everything was just missing.
They were trying to do the Cloverfield thing, where the movies' names are similar but different. You know, Cloverfield, 10 Cloverfield Lane, Cloverfield Paradox.
Yeah, it's the same event from a different person's perspective, but then they meet the characters from the first film.
Fuck off.
And then I didn't know that. See, I haven't seen the film.
Yeah.
I don't know that. The only reason why I know that is because they tell you in the second film. They're basically just like, hello, I used to be in the first film.
Here comes the airplane, swallow.
Yeah, it's like exposition, and she's dying too, and she's like, me and this guy did this thing, and then now he's here, and then it's just like, now he's gonna help you, and I'm like, I shouldn't know this much. Like, if you just jumped into the second Lord of the Rings film, you'd be like, what is going on? Why are these characters connected? Why are these little characters off in one direction and the powerful ones aren't with them? What's going on? It's because it's a good fucking film that doesn't expect you to require spoonfuls of information.
Yeah, that's tough. That's why it's hard to go with that sort of naming scheme where people aren't certain that they're related. Because if it was called Skyline 2, no one would watch it without watching Skyline 1. Or if people did, they would know what they're getting into.
Which is like before the part where he meets this character, who then disappears. By the way, there's no reason for those prequel characters to be there at all. So the entire film could have been. I didn't finish the film actually, but as far as I've seen. The film could have been done without you even having a connection, the way that the Cloverfield movies are done. You could watch any of those in any order and just be like, oh shit, those are connected.
That is what I like about certain movies that were done without, I say without fat. There is fat in Shrek and Pirates 1 and all those things, but there's so little fat that the fat is enjoyable. And
I would say there's like basically no fat in Shrek, in Pirates. Even scenes like the fight scene between Johnny Depp and what's his name?
Jack Sparrow.
Jack and Will in the blacksmith place. It says everything about the two characters. It says that they're both good fighters. It shows that Will is an honorable man and that Jack is always willing to like do the dirty.
I think the fattest scene is the final fight at the moon caves.
No, it's important. It's an important one.
I understand
because
it's
of the
important,
way it ends.
but I think the scenes that occurred out on the Navy ships just should have been reduced. There should have been about 25% less. And I really don't give a shit about Elizabeth's father ever at any point in those series, period.
Yeah, he was.
I would really rather him be in as few scenes as possible unless he's directly interacting with one of the main characters. So his whole scene where he was like fighting off the arm, I don't care.
Yeah,
I just don't.
That was just like a Disney silly thing.
So there you go. There's a big chunk of fat that I would cut off my meat and leave on the side of my plate.
I didn't even think about how that's a Disney film.
Oh, it is a Disney film. That's true.
Yeah.
That is very true. Well, it started as Disney, right? Because it was their ride. Pirates of the Caribbean is their ride at Disney. Yeah, and that's how that spawned.
Ghost Ship was also... no, wait.
Ghost Ship sounds like a rock song to me. Come along on the Ghost Ship.
Like Crazy Train. There's
We're going on the seas on a ghostly ship.
I forget what it was, but there was a movie based on a ride, and it was just horrible.
Oh, you mean like another pirate one?
Yeah, no, it was another one.
I don't know if I know about another one. I know a lot of movies have been made into rides. Usually it goes that way.
Right. This one was
the opposite. This is a rare occasion. Yeah, I noticed that there was an agreement that never actually took place in Shrek. He made an agreement with Farquaad. He said that you have to restore my swamp to the way it was. And Farquaad says, to the last slime-covered toadstool, so implying that he's going to clean it up completely. But when Shrek gets back there, nothing has been done. The only thing they did was remove the fairy tale creatures. There's still tents set up all over the place.
Well, yeah, that's supposed to represent... Like,
exactly. That's how contracts go, right? You kind of get what you were supposed to. Yeah.
Well, also, how can you make an effective contract with the king? He's the one who enforces contracts.
Contracts, yeah. No, that's a very good point. You have to just trust him at his word. And
right.
I guess he did pretty good. He gave him his swamp back, which was actually more than he really had to do. He could have just had him killed.
You know, it could actually also say that Farquaad don't give a damn about his bad reputation.
He doesn't seem to. He really doesn't seem to. I also like that one scene where Fiona comes up with a new advanced way of hunting birds, where you just sing really loudly and they try to follow you until they fucking explode.
Yes.
I just love that the bird comes up to meet her, and it's this perfect Disney scene, and then the bird literally explodes, leaving none of it except for its feet behind. And then she eats its children. She cooks the eggs immediately after. It's such a deranged scene.
It is. And it's also like, there's an example. You got that character who blows up the bird, and then in the film that was timed to the Led Zeppelin song, she uses the birds the way exactly how you'd expect Snow White to use them. She controls the animals, so she uses them to distract the guards. It's a fairy tale story. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the later films got too much like regular fairy tales.
Like regular fairy tales, yeah.
And they forgot what they were after. The way that Ratchet and Clank stories stopped being satirical until the fourth one.
Yeah, let's not go into that one.
We're going to go into that. The next 10 years is going to be dedicated to playing every Ratchet and Clank game, maybe twice, who knows.
So when Donkey finally stands up to Shrek and convinces him to go and try and break up the wedding, I really like the scene where he delays him. He says, like, you need to go in at the right moment. Like, you need to go in when he says, does anyone here object?
Is there a motivated cutaway?
Well, so he's hurling Donkey up in the air to try and see through the window.
Right.
And he's like, has he said it yet? Has he said it yet? Oh, shit, I think he already said it. And it just bolts in there. But no one seems to hear the dragon landing outside the church and then going and fighting all the guards, because when they walk inside, everyone's like, what the fuck? Like, Shrek is here?
It's like characters don't hear cars coming in films where they get hit by them.
That's a very good point. Like, yeah, there's no indication.
It's not like it's like a busy city. It's like a quiet street, and they step out and just boom, and it makes a sound as it goes by too. It's like, all right,
just at the last second. Yeah,
it's like turning on your hybrid car.
The car was actually going faster than the speed of sound right up until the moment before it hit, and then it slowed down right to exactly. You just couldn't hear it. That's what was going on. And when they're in the church, the dragon comes through the actual window and eats Lord Farquaad. So they essentially kill the antagonist in that movie. There's a deleted scene where he's actually alive in the dragon's stomach, but I don't think that's really much better than being dead.
I don't think that's a deleted scene.
Yeah, it is. It's not in the actual movie.
Isn't that in the?
It is not in the outro as much as I thought it was.
I thought he sang in the outro.
No, so they actually do another song the same way the outro's done, and it's Staying Alive.
Right.
And then he says it in there, and he's got like a lighter.
Okay.
Because he's inside the dragon, and he can like just barely see and move. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Farquaad is just a gross individual.
Yeah, but then the dragon has donkey babies in the next film, so.
Which were actually kind of hilarious. The tiny winged donkeys that shot out fireballs.
Oh, so cute.
And oh my god, they actually remind me of. Have you seen Hotel Transylvania?
No.
Oh, okay. Because in Hotel Transylvania, David Spade plays a werewolf, and him and his werewolf wife have like 8 or 9 children, and they sleep all over him. Like, he'll wake up in the morning and there's one on his forehead and the rest are like lying on his chest, and he basically gets 0 sleep, so he's just always wrung out by these like little monster children. It's my favorite character.
I've been told it's a pretty good film, and there's 3 of them.
Yeah, I haven't seen the third one, but the first one is really good. The second one's pretty good as well. Yeah, it's Adam Sandler, so take that how you will. I know you're somewhat skeptical sometimes. He plays the...
Animated, I think, would be much better, though.
He does a good accent.
Actually,
I appreciate his accent.
recently, Adam Sandler's been much better. Like, I haven't seen the what was the crazy? No, not Crazy 8. What was the
Ridiculous Six?
Yeah, Ridiculous Six.
Which is pretty good. I
haven't seen it, but it certainly seemed like it was like back in his style of comedy. Whereas there was a point where I felt like all he was doing is kind of just yelling things, and it was like that's not really like comedy. That's just a quirk of your characters.
I think in some ways that happened to Will Ferrell a little bit,
absolutely.
and I think that is natural progression where you move away from what you were hoping to do, and then after a while you try and move back towards it. Like when
it's easy to, I mean, 'cause it's a combination of potentially just being tired of what you're doing, but also believing that you can streamline your comedy style. Streamlining,
most things can't be streamlined effectively.
The production and writing of something can get streamlined. You just can't be streamlining like
the jokes,
the way that you get it to people. Like you're just like, I'm just gonna like get this joke out real quick and spend no time with it.
Yeah, no, that is a very, very good point. It's definitely changed quite a bit. What movie was I gonna mention? I don't know. Adam Sandler really does have some pretty good movies overall.
Jack and Jill.
Yeah.
An excellent example of product placement.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to do when somebody does a movie just for money. It's hard to know if you should like count that as a knock against them in their career, or if that's something that you're entitled to do as an actor, which I feel like you are entitled to do it.
I still love Liam Neeson. He's just churning out films.
Yeah.
Same thing with Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Like I still love the actors, and I like, dude, the third Taken film is so dumb, and I loved every second of it. There's a part where he sends a fucking burning car down an elevator shaft, and it explodes. There's this aerial shot of the outside of the building, and the entire elevator shaft explodes. It's fucking awesome, and it's the dumbest thing ever, and it makes no sense at all, and Forrest Whitaker is completely underused. But the whole time I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it really is just about what you want from the movie, right? Sometimes you want a movie that's so ridiculous it doesn't make any sense, and other times you want a really gritty drama. If you get the wrong movie at the wrong time, you're going to think it's crap.
Ash vs. the Evil Dead.
Yes.
Is a TV show, but it came from a movie series that was originally not supposed to be funny. It was intended to be very serious, but it was done very hokey, and they didn't try to make it hokey, so it kind of came off. It didn't really come off the way that they were intending it to. But then they realized what they had, and they made the second film as an over-the-top, silly,
hokey thing
movie, and it became a cult classic because they adapted to what they had instead of what they wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm. It's important to both follow your vision, but also follow what is currently in front of you.
Sometimes you don't even know what you have. Like, you know the character in Clerks 2 that isn't Randall or Dante? The really nervous kid?
Mm-hmm.
That character, like, there's almost no character there until the actor who plays him got the role. And then he wanted to work with Kevin Smith to make the character what he is now.
Oh, okay.
He was essentially just supposed to be the third character for, like, stuff to bounce off of. You know, for, like, Randall to be an asshole to. But the whole, like, pillow pants thing and all the weird shit that he says is, like, came from the actor, who I don't think has done any other film.
Really?
Yeah. He was working on, like, I don't know, his master's or something like that, and he heard about this film that Kevin Smith was doing, and it was just, like, the role that he did. He used to be, like, a theater actor. But it was just one of those great situations where Kevin Smith didn't expect anything from that character, and the only reason why it ended up being really cool was because he was able to adapt to what he had and not what he wanted.
Well, that was something that actually changed in Shrek, was that Mike Myers had already recorded. So they've re-recorded a shitload for this movie. So first of all, Chris Farley was originally going to be Shrek, which I would love to hear what the original cut sounded like with Chris Farley as Shrek, because it just would have been totally different. But when Mike Myers came in, he wanted it to be consistent, so he wanted them to redo every line rather than leaving any of Farley's lines in there, because obviously that would undermine the voice.
Right.
So he redid every line in the movie, and then once he was done redoing all the lines, he decided that he felt a Scottish accent would be better. And I think it's because his mom used to read stories to him in a Scottish accent. And so he did a voice read for the producers, and they were so happy with the new voice that they redid $4 million in animation on Shrek's mouth alone.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So just imagine how much animation work goes into it if Shrek's mouth is $4 million, and that's just Shrek, just his mouth.
Oh yeah, they're usually in hundreds of millions.
Their budget, yeah, just for the animation.
Which is why, like, when you hear like they they made like 300 million in the box office, like that's like 100 million of that was just to make it. So like there's times where like Ubisoft will be like, we can't keep making this game because it isn't doing well enough at selling like 2.5 million copies, because it's just like it just took us so much fucking money.
So much overhead, yeah.
That's why Grand Theft Auto 5 is still being like, they're still updating it because they spent $500 million on it.
You can't give that cash cow up. You got to keep moving it.
It's one of the greatest. Like it is, I believe at the time was the highest budget of any media form in history.
Really?
Yeah, and then I'm pretty sure. What's that? What just came out? The TV show or Altered Carbon. That one just set a new record for like a most expensive season.
Really?
By far, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
How much?
I don't know.
Interesting.
I'm sure a lot of it was actors.
Game of Thrones, I think, was at. I think it was like $10 million an episode.
At least.
Which is $100 million
an episode? Are you sure? Because
yeah.
I heard that number about seasons.
No, I'm pretty sure Rome was $9 million an episode.
Rome, a show that people don't really even remember,
but was apparently extremely good. I thought so because every episode required 700 authentic costumes.
Right.
So 7,000 costumes.
I guess that makes sense with the.
So you're not paying any actors or anything, just for the costumes. How much do you think it costs to make 7,000 costumes?
Oh,
authentic to that era.
Potentially like what, 500 each, or 1,000 each.
Well, let's say it's 1,000 each, which is probably way too much, but that makes $7 million over the course of just to fucking clothe the people. You got to pay the actors and actresses. You got to pay for the locations. You got to pay for all the people to coordinate. I wouldn't doubt it if it's $10 million an episode. Could be wrong. Could be.
At this point, you're probably right.
If they made 10 episodes for $10 million, they'd be laughing all the way to the bank. Right?
Because I swear that's what like the first season was. It was like $1 million an episode.
Maybe, yes. I'm talking about season 6, I believe, is when this stat is from.
The visual effects are so good in Game of Thrones that it wouldn't surprise me. Like it's quite stunning, and they used some ideas that you see in Dragonheart, where they would combine computer generated effects with practical effects. So like they animate his tail breaking something, and then they actually broke a piece of the wall in the actual filming.
So that it looks... Oh, okay, interesting.
And it doesn't take much. The line between the illusion working and not working is sometimes really tiny. For example, the Terminator scene where he cuts his eye out for whatever reason, and it looks so much like Arnie's actually doing that. And what they did was they got it's not a mirror, it's a set that is mirrored. They designed the entire set like mirrored so that the other side of the room looks like a mirror when it's actually just him looking through at like a stunt double or plastic whatever.
Whoa.
Yeah, but the illusion was really put together. Like the final little touch that made the illusion work was adding the second frame to the mirror on the other side.
Really?
Just that tiny piece of wood that they put on the other side that made it feel like a double mirror or whatever. Whoa. A double reflection was like the line where they were like, "What's wrong with this scene?"
Because your brain can tell those little things.
Yeah. Oh,
it's just that actually happened to me yesterday. Went back to our mom's house to use the pool since it was super hot, and I walk outside and I just looked at the neighbor's yard and I said, "There was a tree there. I swear there was a tree there." And we're looking around and we don't see anything, but there's these shrubs. So I went up close to the shrubs, and sure enough, there's a stump of a tree in the middle. Because your brain doesn't necessarily need to know what's missing to know something's wrong. It just recognizes that the pattern doesn't fit, and then from there it starts looking for what's wrong.
Something that really fucks with me is when you know you're gonna know the name of something, but you can't come up with it. Yesterday, 4 Year Strong. I hadn't heard the name of that band in probably 4 years at least. And I was just like, I will know the name of this band when I see it, but I can't remember it now. So I'm just like typing in random lyrics.
Yeah, okay.
And eventually I was like,
it.
that's it. I got it.
Nice. I found that when I was watching Shrek, because it happens in, I think, 2001, I believe it came out, you can tell that it's animated in a different way than things modernly. Like when you watch a movie like Inside Out, you know it's animated, but you can't really see the artifacts of animation because it's come so far. Same with a movie like Frozen.
You're saying it's too polished.
What? The modern ones?
Yeah.
Well, no, you're not supposed to see the artifacts. So I would say the modern ones are adequately polished. Because Frozen is an amazing movie. It looks amazing. It really does.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And actually, you know what? I would be interested in doing a discussion of Frozen one day.
Really?
Well, Frozen
I haven't seen it.
It's one of the... That's not true. Have you seriously not seen it?
Yeah, seriously.
Oh.
Really? Of the
Bro.
animated films of like the last 10 years, I have seen the Seth Rogen one about aliens with that big... Paul. No, sorry. I've seen that too, I guess.
Okay.
No, the one... I thought it was Seth Rogen. The one woman, like, she's like super fucking tall. Or sorry, she's gigantic.
Monsters vs. Aliens.
Yes.
Yeah, Seth Rogen plays Bob.
I saw that. I haven't seen Despicable Me.
You haven't seen Inside Out?
Nope.
Dude, that movie will... It doesn't pull at your heartstrings, it just cuts them.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
But Frozen was one of the first Disney movies to really break the mold of what makes a Disney movie and really push, not in the way Shrek did, but really push the limits of what can be a fairy tale. But either way, with Shrek, I noticed that you could see a lot of these artifacts. Like Shrek kind of pops out because he's animated separate from the background. And just back then, they weren't as good at blending those two aspects together. So it was like I was saying, that one scene where it looks like Shrek just kind of opens his hand and the thing just gets like thrown on its own. Because if it wasn't big enough for them to concern themselves with, you know, it was just a little central area of a large screen. So they're worried about all the other animations. They're worried about all these characters and what they're doing, and they're suddenly not paying as much attention to the little details. So a scene where Shrek is the only thing in it, you're not going to notice. You won't even be able to tell that he's separate from the background. But when there's all these other moving components, there's just so many things to animate.
There's this thing that basically every single television show does, and most people don't notice. The over the shoulder shot, rather, when you can see just the side of someone's face from behind them. Mm-hmm. That is so commonly unsynchronized with the audio because the reaction they got from the person that you're supposed to be looking at needed to be on a slightly different timing. Basically, I don't think I've ever seen a television show not do that.
Really?
Yep.
So if you actually watch closely, the vibration, like the movement of the side of their mouth, is not synced to the words.
It'll be slightly off. Yep. It's because you're supposed to be focusing on the face, and most people are.
Yeah.
I'm just always looking for little things like that. Like
yeah,
I
we're
see.
Weirdos.
Well, I also edit a lot.
Yeah.
Like I see little tiny things that I do, so then I see other people do them, but like that's the danger in the over-the-shoulder shot, which is why you see some directors like to take shots where you just see one person's face. Mm-hmm. Like the Coen brothers do reverse shot, where the camera's in between them both, and it'll show this person sitting at like let's take for example No Country for Old Men. Mm-hmm. You have these scenes where it's like showing the woman and her shock that this hitman's in her home, and then showing the hitman and he says something, and there's not a lot of over the shoulder as far as I remember.
Yeah, so you can't see them in the same frame. I noticed that when they fight the Merry Men, which first of all,
the Merry Men,
yeah, the Robin Hood gang.
It's been a while.
Because so they're going through the forest, and Fiona gets actually essentially kidnapped temporarily by Monsieur Hood, who is the leader of the Merry Men, and then they all start dancing and singing, and they try and attack Shrek, and then she just mucks all of them.
Yes, like karate style. Isn't there a...
So she...
There's a Matrix reference in that.
Yeah, there is. There's almost two in a way. Because the first Matrix reference, she freezes in midair before she kicks them. And then the other one is like, she does this jump spin kick and it shows it like 3 times.
Oh.
Like it shows it and then half shows it and half shows it, like a highlight in a boxing match or something. But she comes in swinging on a rope. She kicks Monsieur Hood. He goes flying and lands head first on a rock. He might have actually died. The way he landed. And then, yeah, she beats the crap out of all the other ones. But you can actually still see in the background these shrubs that they were hiding behind originally. They actually left them in the shot because, so 3 of them are standing up and look like shrubs, but one of them has fallen over. And I thought that was awesome because they're still incorporating something you knew to be part of the scene.
Yes.
And I bring these up all the time, but I still love those scenes in Friends when they did big parties. Because in Friends, when they did big parties, they wouldn't do that bullshit where they fill the room with extras and then record Ross and Rachel. And then on a different day, they'll bring in Chandler and Ross.
Right.
Or whatever. They would actually have the big name actors just milling around in the background having conversations and like hugging people and doing all these various things to make it look like the room is actually a place.
That's amazing.
Rather than all these individual things. I'm sure it was expensive as hell.
Game of Thrones does that very well too. Characters you never noticed.
So important. It's
Like-
so important.
Like, tell me you noticed Lord Bolton before season 3, I think it was.
No, but he's there.
He was there.
He's constantly there.
In the second season, he's in almost every shot, or almost every scene, that Robb Stark is in.
Yeah, he's his right-hand man.
Whether
more or
he's
less.
talking to him or he's just in the background, he's always fucking there.
Yeah, I really appreciate that they treat the characters as real entities rather than the actors that they are. Because there's just a lot of shows where they would save all that money by not having Matthew Perry standing around on set while somebody else tries to get their shot right. But when you watch it, it feels so cohesive. You see them having the conversation, and then you see Joey leaving that conversation, and then you see a conversation Joey's in across the room. It's just so much more immersive.
It's pretty interesting that they chose, like, that's like one of the biggest sets, like single set pieces of a sitcom, now that I'm thinking about it.
Monica's apartment?
Yeah. It's huge, and it's shot together. Like, it's like the set of Fresh Prince, like the main level of the house, is huge, but they're separate rooms. Like, it's the kitchen and the living room. Whereas Monica's place is a big giant L, and they film so many things all at once in that really big space.
Yeah, there's the kitchen, the living room, and the
weird back
hanging
area.
out room. Yeah, are all one area.
And then there's the window.
The window with the balcony.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Their bedrooms are the only part that are sort of separate, and
Yes.
they enter on different terms.
And they put, I don't think those are connected. Like, I think those are separate
Yeah,
sets.
they're totally different.
But they put, like, just what you could see from the door. And there's, like, that shit's in there, like the bed. And
I also like that in Friends there's a poll that either does or does not exist based off whether it makes sense. So right when you walk in, you'd be able to see a pole right in front of you, but the pole is not always there if it doesn't make sense as far as camera placement.
Right.
So the pole's only there when someone either walks into it, or there's a party and there's like a table next to the pole, or some other wide shot. But in a normal shot, all the time, like, the camera will be where the pole is supposed to be all the time.
Did you know that Michael Bay has this thing for street lamps? He puts them in shots where you won't notice them because a lot of stuff's happening, but, like, the shot will essentially begin with a street lamp in the shot, or end with a street lamp in the shot. And so, like, Optimus Prime's fucking rolling around shooting people, and there's just this street light just kind of, like, framing the scene.
Flickering.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He's just, like, really into, like, framing them.
I guess some people like to do that. That's his signature in a way. He's putting that little extra piece in.
I think at this point, okay, maybe signature was the right word, because signature isn't necessarily what you're known for. It's the thing that you put on there.
Yeah, exactly. It's your calling card in a way.
But his two huge things, I mean, obviously everyone knows explosions, so that's one of them. But the other one is the sweeping rotational shot of a character standing up and looking behind them in the distance. He does it so many times. He does it
Yeah.
with he does it in Bad Boys. Did you know that was
Oh yeah.
Michael Bay?
Yeah.
He does it in Transformers.
Those are the two main ones I was thinking of.
I can't remember any other.
It was done really well in Bad Boys because it was appropriate.
And there's
And
2 characters.
in Transformers, I see it as being appropriate, but I think the Transformers, I don't know what it was. It just all felt very uninspired.
Shit just
The
got
whole
real.
thing. Algorithms, math. I think that's the 4th movie. My friend used to love to show that to me because I remember thinking, I hadn't seen the movie and I said, oh, it can't be that bad. And he just looked at me straight up, didn't say anything. And to the point where I was kind of unnerved, I went, do you not believe that I don't believe you? And he said, I'm going to show you right now.
What's the 4th one called? Is it Age of Extinction?
I think so, yeah.
Because that's the one that I
Yeah.
love making fun of too.
And so there's like this material that can turn into anything it wants, and it like turns into an iPhone. Somebody points out that why the fuck would it turn into an iPhone? Their technology is superior to ours. So like that's not really that interesting. That's like if a smartphone is able to play the radio. You're not amazed that it plays the radio. That's something it should be able to do. Like why wouldn't advanced technology be able to become a shitty iPhone? That's so normal. But then later his engineers are all being really slow and he just slams his hand on this glass wall and he goes, algorithms, math. Why is this so hard to figure out? And he is leading the programming team. It's such an absurd scene. I know very little about programming. I am in the bottom 10% of programming knowledge, and yet I still know that that scene is complete horseshit. It's like in a Jupiter Ascending when whatever Channing Tatum's dog character was named. He says they use differential equations to allow you to fly. Sure.
No.
Differential equations.
No.
You know, I've heard that when you solve differential equations, you actually create anti-gravity.
That's
So if
actually-
you solve them fast enough, you start to float.
That's how Isaac Newton died.
Yeah.
the
the apple
apple-
didn't hit him. He hit the apple.
Hit the apple. Yeah. Except he floated up so quickly to the apple that he actually died.
He thought it was falling,
Yeah.
and he died. And so
Yeah.
you need to be careful with those differential equations.
Watch out for that.
If you're in grade 11 calc, be careful.
Yeah.
You know, use protection.
There's differential and something else calculus that he came up with.
Oh, yeah, integral.
Integral, yeah.
Yeah, which is hilarious that he essentially created all of calculus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he discovered it. He discovered how we can interpret something that already exists.
Yes.
You can
and
invent a
no.
language, but you can't really invent.
But he so there you go. He invented the language to express.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
You can invent the process to discover
Exactly.
radio waves, but you
Exactly.
didn't invent radio waves.
Well, it's the same thing. He didn't invent fluids, but we call them Newtonian or non-Newtonian.
Right.
Like, imagine being that fucking influential that fluids are
Dude.
broken down into either you or not you.
The guys who are known for that kind of thing usually have something going on that
Yeah.
doesn't allow them to fully comprehend
yeah.
or even
also,
care.
it was before his time. Or sorry, it was after his time.
Oh, way after,
He wouldn't
yeah.
have known all of
Yeah.
these things.
Same
That's
with
the
Picasso.
greatest tragedy. Yeah, is all these people who we love the most in the world were hated in their time period. That just seems to be the way of it.
And we're sitting here going, why don't people know about us after 3 years of YouTube?
Yeah,
These
because
fucking guys spent like 60 years. Nobody knew about them. Nobody gives a shit.
I saw a really good joke where you know the expression like who died and put this person in charge.
Right.
Someone was like, I'm tired of learning about philosophy. Like, who died and put Plato in charge of philosophy? And then someone goes, Aristotle. That's how it works. When he died, the next best guy takes over.
That's funny.
Oh, man. Oh, well, thank you for joining us in this discussion of Shrek and other things somewhat related to Shrek. Please join us next time for our discussion of The Road by Cormac
Whoa,
McCarthy.
I'm excited.
It will be mainly a discussion of the book. However, I will definitely be watching the movie, and I expect you will be as well, as long as I don't move up our recording date.
Dude, that fucking movie freaked me out.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to watching the movie. The book is hard enough to read.
Well, the book is more depressing.
Oh, is it ever?
The book has much more fucked up stuff that they kind of thought would leave out just in case.
Yeah, the other day I was picking you up from a little veterinary trip,
Mm.
and I was reading at that point probably the hardest scene in the book when you came out. Normally I would just say, oh, hang on a sec, I gotta finish this page. But not then. I'll pick up right where I am. Can't keep going.
Oh, that's funny.
You get in, I'm shedding a tear. Okay, well, please come back next time and enjoy our discussion of the road in the future. Thank you for joining us.